The leaders of South Korea and Egypt are holding a summit in Cairo today, seeking to expand the two countries' cooperation and marking the 30th anniversary of diplomatic ties this year. South Korean shares made a rebound to close above the 4,000 mark on Thursday on the back of chip and tech shares after NVIDIA's robust quarterly report eased investors' concerns over an AI bubble. A UN committee adopted a North Korean human rights resolution for the 21st consecutive year. The resolution will be reviewed at the upcoming General Assembly plenary next month for final adoption. We begin with the Korea-Egypt summit taking place at the Presidential Palace in Cairo for a key cooperation between the two countries. And our Presidential Office correspondent Yoon Jung-min is in Egypt's capital. Jung-min, what is the latest?
Tammy, the summit just began here in the capital of Egypt, starting off with official welcoming ceremony. The leaders sat down for a one-on-one, followed by an expanded talks. We also expect the signing of MOUs. The agenda would have included bilateral cooperation on trade, education, and culture. We believe the talks are still underway, and I will keep you updated when I learn more about the details later on. Seoul and Cairo celebrate 3 decades of their diplomatic ties this year. President Lee Jae-myung will be hosted by his Egyptian counterpart, Abdel Fattah El-Sisi, for a luncheon.
So the summit is taking place as of right now. Now, what's on the rest of the president's schedule then?
President Lee will deliver a speech at Cairo University to lay out his vision for the Middle East. One of the key focuses could include K-culture and cultural exchanges, with the growing popularity of Korean dramas and cultural content in Egypt, particularly among young people. In the evening, the South Korean leader will meet Koreans residing in Egypt. After he closes out his trip to Cairo, Lee will be heading to South Africa to attend the G20 summit. He will then depart for Turkey, the final leg of his 10-day-long trip, for talks with its President Recep Tayyip Erdogan before heading home next week. Back to you, Dan.
All right, Jung-min, thanks for connecting with us. That was our top office correspondent, Yoon Jung-min, live from Cairo. And President Lee Jae-myung says South Korea is Egypt's most reliable partner in advancing Vision 2030, the country's long-term strategy for sustainable development. In an op-ed published Thursday in Egypt Al-Ahram newspaper, President Lee expressed confidence that a deeper cooperation in the economy, culture, and peace building will help build a better tomorrow for both countries. In particular, he voiced hope of strengthening what he called for their peace cooperation, outlining his North Korea policy of expanding exchanges, normalizing relations, and pursuing denuclearization. He noted that Egypt has been a consistent supporter of peace on the Korean Peninsula. And as President Lee Jae-myung visits Egypt today and meets with President El-Sisi, Egypt's top diplomat to Seoul told Arirang News that both leaders are ready to cooperate on real, tangible outcomes. Our Oh Seung sat down with him.
Seoul and Cairo are embarking on a new phase of strategic partnership with room for collaboration on infrastructure, AI, and culture. That's according to Khaled Abdel Rahman, who is Egyptian ambassador to Seoul since 2022.
We are celebrating 30 years of diplomatic relations this year. It's an important visit after a phone call between the two leaders of the countries, and they have agreed on the main topics of cooperation. The political will for both leaders are very strong, very visible, and I think they will be transformed into tangible, real projects that benefit both Egypt and Korea.
A major pillar of this cooperation could be energy and industrial technology. Korean companies are expanding across Egypt's manufacturing, renewable energy and power plant sectors. Last year, SK Ecoplant signed a $1.9 billion renewable energy development project. Korea Hydro and Nuclear Power won a contract to supply components for Egypt's first nuclear power plant in El-Daba.
So definitely there is room for collaboration between Egyptian and Korean companies, and the expertise and know-how here is very important because we see the partnership between our two countries as springboard for Africa. So we can use that collaboration to enter into other African markets concerning green energy and renewables.
Egypt is a regional trade hub with its Suez Canal, the Suez Canal Economic Zone, and free trade agreements with Europe, Africa, and the Arab world. Especially at a time of fractured supply chains, the ambassador says the two countries are genuine partners.
So from that, you can export and you can benefit from the low tariff rates and the reduction of time to travel to the destination where you want to sell your goods. So this is also, I mean, you can take a flight from Egypt to many European destinations within 3-4 hours. So air transport is also possible, not only by sea. So also Egyptian airports are now open for public and private partnership, and especially the private sector. And I'm hearing good news that one of the Korean companies might be managing one of our airports that are open for foreign investors.
The ambassador suggested that joint production in Egypt is the next step for a win-win partnership.
We are presenting Egypt as a regional partner for Korea to work in other countries in the region. And I must say here, for the rehabilitation, reconstruction in Gaza, this is a very good opportunity for collaboration of Korean companies, Egyptian companies, to work to rebuild the lives of the Palestinian people. And also we are building new cities, smart cities. And I think this is the strong point with Korea, with AI, and His Excellency President Lee has allocated a very big budget for the AI. And we would like to be partners in that and to really build new cities that can cater for the needs of the next generation.
Cultural exchange is also expanding, especially as Egypt has opened the largest museum in the world dedicated to a single civilization, housing over 100,000 artifacts, showing how ancient Egypt contributed to the world from prehistory to the Greek and Roman periods.
This shows that Egypt is part of the international community, and this is what we are trying to say to the world, that peace is important, culture is important, and we have to know our history and our roots. And being the oldest country in the world, we are inviting all Koreans to come and to share the modern Egypt now, because this museum is a modern building, hosting an ancient civilization.
And as he reflects on his 4 years in Seoul, the ambassador says the human connection between Egyptians and Koreans, especially youth, is what will stay with him most.
One of my most satisfiable moments was when I was seeing Egyptian and Korean people engaging together, be it in commercial activities or in culture or in art or even in sports, So this experience has really enriched my diplomatic career, which has been going on for the past 34 years.
As the ambassador's lasting legacy, direct flights between Seoul and Cairo will launch next year. He says he hopes people-to-people exchanges will continue to grow as the two countries broaden their cooperation. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
Global AI-related stocks enjoyed a bullish day after the world's largest chipmaker NVIDIA delivered robust quarterly earnings, including the KOSPI soaring to regain the 4,000 mark at Thursday's close. Our Park Junan has more.
On Thursday, South Korea's benchmark KOSPI soared by 1.92% to close above the critical 4,000 mark. Specifically, shares in South Korea's tech titans Samsung Electronics and SK Hynix were up 4.25% and 1.6% respectively from Wednesday's close. This reaction came after the world's largest chipmaker NVIDIA reported earnings higher than estimates, shrugging off concerns about an AI bubble. NVIDIA's outperforming earnings shifted global market sentiment from skepticism to optimism, driven by company CEO Jensen Huang's remarks that AI demand remains strong. The U.S. chip giant reported a record $57 billion in quarterly revenue, exceeding estimates by nearly $2 billion, and forecast even stronger growth to reach $65 billion in its next quarterly earnings report. Over the past few weeks, some mega-hedge funds have bet against AI-related stocks, and some investors have questioned whether the astronomical capital spending on AI infrastructure will ever bring matching profits. As investor sentiment changed, global stocks indices reacted to the news overnight. Japan's Nikkei 225 rose 2.65% on Thursday, while the United States tech-heavy Nasdaq 100 futures, as of 3:30 p.m. Korean Standard Time, is recording a jump of 1.8% since its close on Wednesday. Now, investors' attention is turning to the U.S. Federal Reserve, as the CME Group's FedWatch indicates a 70% chance that the central bank will maintain its current interest rate level of 3.75% to 4%. Meanwhile, U.S. President Donald Trump continues to strongly urge the Federal Reserve to lower interest rates. In a recent speech, he even quipped to U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent that if he doesn't press Fed Chair Jerome Powell to act faster on cuts, he will be fired. Trump has long argued that slashing rates is essential to stimulate economic growth and ease borrowing costs for consumers and companies. Park Junan, Arirang News.
South Korea saw auto exports slip in October as a shorter working month due to the Chuseok holiday and U.S. tariffs weighed on outbound shipments. Our correspondent Moon Ji-young reports.
South Korea's auto exports fell for the first time in 5 months in October as the extended Chuseok holiday reduced the number of working days and higher U.S. tariff dampened demand. Data from the Ministry of Trade, Industry and Resources on Thursday show outbound automobile shipments reached $5.5 billion, down over 10% from a year earlier. Despite last month's decline, cumulative exports from January to October hit a record $59.6 billion. The ministry attributed the monthly drop partly to this year's Chuseok falling in early October, cutting production days by 3 to 4. Shipments to the United States, Korea's largest market, dropped 29% as a 25% tariff under the Trump administration took effect. Washington is expected to lower that rate to 15% in line with Japan and the EU once Seoul submits a special bill tied to its planned $350 billion investment in the U.S. Finance Minister Gu Yun-chul said on Wednesday that the government plans to send a bill to the National Assembly before the end of this month, enabling the reduced tariff to apply retroactively. Exports to the EU slipped over 2%, while shipments to Asia surged 42% and Latin America rose nearly 24%, helping offset weakness in major Western markets. By type, eco-friendly models continue to perform well. Exports of electric, hybrid, and hydrogen vehicles totaled $2 billion. Hybrid shipments grew nearly 4%, and EV exports posted a slight increase for the 5th straight month. At home, auto sales declined nearly 13% to 127,000 units. Domestic EV sales, however, jumped 56%, posting year-to-date sales to 189,000 units, already surpassing last year's annual total. Moon Ji-young, Arirang News.
According to the Ministry of Data and Statistics, the career break rate for married women between the ages of 15 and 54 and living with children under the age of 18 has dropped to a record low. The rate was 21.3% in the first half of 2025, down 1.4 percentage points from last year. The number, 885,000 recorded, is the lowest since our records began in 2014. At the same time, the married women's employment rate reached an all-time high of 67.3%. However, the career break rate was notably higher when women had more than one child. Childcare continues to be the leading factor pushing women out of the workforce, as it contributes to 44% of those leaving the workforce. The UN General Assembly's committee once again pushed ahead with a resolution condemning North Korea's human rights violations. South Korea did join as a co-sponsor, but one expert says this could change next year. Our correspondent Kim Bo-kyung tells us more.
The UN General Assembly's Third Committee has adopted a North Korean human rights resolution for the 21st consecutive year. Co-sponsored by South Korea and 60 other countries, the resolution condemning the regime's human rights violations was adopted by consensus on Wednesday local time without a vote, and then was forwarded to the General Assembly plenary session. The latest resolution expressed deep concern about the grave human rights violations by the regime and the lack of accountability for human rights violations and abuses. It also condemned the reclusive state for diverting excessive resources to military expenditure and its illegal nuclear weapons and ballistic missile programs rather than securing welfare. South Korea was one of the first 41 member states supporting the draft resolution, though there have been speculation that the liberal government led by President Lee Jae-myung might not join, as it aims to push for dialogue with Pyongyang. South Korea continued to co-sponsor the resolution from 2008 to 2018, but under the Moon Jae-in administration between 2019 and 2022, it withdrew, citing concerns about the impact on inter-Korean relations. Seoul rejoined in 2023 under the previous Yoon Suk-yeol administration. One expert says though Seoul maintained its position to back the resolution, this could change next year.
The government has been sending conciliatory messages to North Korea, hoping for a summit with Kim Jong-un or some form of exchange and cooperation. But the issue North Korea reacts most sensitively to is the UN resolution on human rights. Since this goes against the direction of the government's current policy, there's a high chance that they may not take part next year.
The expert added that this year is the first year of the administration, and sorting out its stance regarding North Korea's human rights could have come a bit too early. But there is a chance South Korea could withdraw from backing the resolution next year. Kim Bo-kyung, Arirang News.
The domestic stock market has been going through a period of adjustment recently, with major indices taking a breather. However, paradoxically, the amount of debt being taken on by individual investors to buy stocks, so-called B2, has hit record highs. Now it seems that retail investors are betting big on a rebound. For a closer look at this phenomenon and the risks involved, our Kim Do-yeon joins me in the studio. Welcome, Do-yeon.
Good to be here.
So, Do-yeon, let's get right to the numbers. You said the debt has hit a record high. Just how big is this loan volume for investment?
Right. First, the scale is quite unprecedented. But first, we know that KOSPI started off in the mid-2000s early this year, and now it's past 4,000 points. So there's been a steep incline, and that's what's really fueling these individual investors to jump into stocks, even at a risky cost of borrowing money. Now, as of November 17th, the total credit balance in the domestic stock market, essentially money borrowed specifically to buy stocks, hit an all-time high of 26.6 trillion won. What's striking is where this money is going to, and it is heavily concentrated in the semiconductor giants as investors bet on a rebound. For SK Hynix, as of the 18th, the margin loan balance surpassed 1.14 trillion won. That is a massive 43% jump compared to just the end of last month. Samsung Electronics is seeing the exact same trend. Its margin loan balance reached 1.438 trillion won, a 41% increase over the same period. And it is not just brokerage loans. People are going to banks to get the cash to invest. Last month, other loans in the banking sector, which includes credit loans often used for investment, spiked by 1.4 trillion won. This is the highest monthly increase we've seen since July 2021. Considering that these loans had been decreasing for the previous 3 months, this sudden U-turn indicates a massive rush of retail investors leveraging their credit to enter the market right now.
So the volume is massive. The numbers do say, but borrowing money is always risky, you know, especially when the interest rates are not exactly low. What are the experts saying about this, the danger level?
Right, that's the crux of the problem. It's not just about the risk of the stock prices falling, it's the cost of holding these debt, right? So currently the interest rate for credit loans or margin trading is hovering around 8 to 10%. So individually, it's always a risk.
If you take out a loan at a high interest rate of 10% and the stock drops by 30%, you are essentially facing a total loss of 40%. Brokerages typically lend up to twice the amount of capital you hold. For this very reason, it is best to invest in stocks using your own available cash flow.
Now, this is only for Korean stocks, right? There is a limit to how much a stock can fall in a day in Korean stocks, the 30% mentioned. For markets like the U.S., there is no limit to how much a stock can fall on a daily basis.
You know, that is a very sobering calculation. A 40% potential hit is significant. But looking at the bigger picture, Toya, if this P2 trend continues, does it pose any systematic risk to the Korean economy?
Now, that is the question on the minds of the policymakers right now in terms of financial services. While individual bankruptcy is tragic, the fear is that a mass wave of defaults could rock the financial system. Now, according to recently released credit level data by the Bank of Korea for the third quarter, it's at an all-time high. Adding a layer of volatile, high-interest private debt on top of that fragile structure is dangerous. If the market crashes, these borrowers default, banks take a hit, and domestic consumption freezes because of households are paying off debt instead of spending. However, the Financial Services Commission is trying to walk a fine line. Their official stance up until last week was that the situation is manageable. They point out that while October saw a spike, if you look at the year-to-date figures, total credit loans across the financial sector have actually decreased by 2.0 trillion won in 2025. So they don't view this as a total system failure yet, but this week, the FSC has also switched its monitoring system for margin lending to a daily basis. They're now checking the loan balances and collateral ratios of security firms every single day, rather than monthly or weekly. They've also issued strict warnings to brokerages to manage their credit limits conservatively. Now, essentially, the government is saying we don't stop you from investing, but if you borrow beyond your means, we can't save you.
You know, a huge message to keep in mind when investing and from borrowing.
Right, with your cash now.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, Toya, thanks for the comprehensive coverage.
Thanks for having me.
It wasn't as cold this morning as yesterday morning. In the daytime, the temperature rose to 14 degrees Celsius in Seoul, far above the average level. However, after sunset, the temperature drops sharply and the cold comes again. Please take good care of your health due to the huge daily temperature difference. The dryness of the atmosphere is severe in the eastern parts of the country. The wind will also blow strongly along the east coast until tomorrow. Please be extra careful not to cause any wildfires. The morning will stay cold at 1 degree in Seoul, 3 degrees in Daegu. Daily highs will rise up to double digits at 11 to 15 degrees throughout the country. Until the weekend, typical autumn weather for this time of year is expected without much cold. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world.
That is all we have for tonight. I'm Kim Dami. From all of us here at Arirang, thanks for watching and good night.